Hello, my name is Maya Haley, and today I will be presenting my final project in labor relations in the workplace. Our assignment was to highlight a labor union and talk about how their rights have been acknowledged and violated during this pandemic. I decided to highlight a labor union formed by the workers from Amazon. They're called the United Amazonian Locals, and they're a new union. I wanted to highlight essential workers because I believe that almost everyone has relied on essential workers to maintain healthy living during this pandemic. I also think that essential workers have been very overworked during this pandemic, and since they've been overworked, they've had some labor violations. So first, I'll be talking about the history of the United Amazonian Locals and some things they have fought for prior to the pandemic. I will then talk about how the United Amazonian Locals are fighting for safe and healthy work conditions during this pandemic. I will then be talking about Amazon's management and as employers, how they're responding to the union's fight for safe and healthy work conditions during this pandemic, and then I will be talking about my own opinion on how I think Amazon responded to this pandemic. So something important to note about Amazon, it's one of the world's largest online retailer. They employ over 7,500,000 workers across the globe. Their local union is called the United Amazonian Locals. Some things they have fought for prior to the pandemic include hot water in the workplace, sick time off, paid time off, and the rehiring of workers who have been fired for unjust reasons. They were interviewed and had a lot of quotes taken from them and put into an article that I got all my information from the Portside website. And so something that they noted was the slogan they use with their union is think big, start small, and that basically means that they start their movement small, but they think big, so they get the whole company involved, and that's how they win most of their fights. Some ways they do this is by picketing, striking, walkouts, and just signing petitions and getting everyone in the company, all the workers in Amazon involved so they can have very safe and healthy working conditions and all their rights that should be given to them are met. On top of that, I want to first speak about how the United Amazonian Locals are responding to their labor rights being violated during this pandemic. I'm going to go over one example. It happened in Queens, New York, where in the warehouse in Queens, New York, a employee of Amazon had tested positive for coronavirus, and instead of Amazon notifying the whole warehouse and all their employees, they decided to only pick a few employees to notify, and by doing that, they violated their employees' rights to a safe and healthy work conditions and exposed a lot of the employees to the virus and put their lives at risk. What the workers in Queens, New York did to respond to this was go straight to their union. Their union took immediate action, notified Amazon, and organized a walkout. Amazon responded by giving everyone their night shift off and sanitizing the whole warehouse. But on top of that, the United Amazonian Locals decided that they needed to petition to have safe and healthy work conditions throughout the whole pandemic. So they made a petition called We Keep Us Safe, and they got the attention of all Amazon workers globally. They got them to walk out, go on strikes, to demand things like hazardous care during the pandemic, child care during the pandemic, and paid sick time during the pandemic if it was or wasn't related to coronavirus. So that's a major movement that the United Amazonian Locals made during this pandemic as a union to make sure that their labor rights to a safe and healthy working environment was met. Now I want to talk about Amazon's response to that. Amazon's response, all my sources and citations from this part of the presentation all my knowledge was from The Intercept, which is a website that talked about Amazon's response to their employees walking out and making this huge petition. So the Amazon management actually said that they are working as hard as they can to maintain safe and healthy work conditions for their employees, that they don't agree with the walking out and striking and think that it's not fair to do that during such an essential time for their workers to be working and providing for the population across the world, and are having a hard time adjusting to making sure that everyone's safe and are working as hard as they can. So that's the United Amazonian Locals' view on their working conditions, and then Amazon companies' views on their employees' working conditions. So now I want to give my own opinion on how I think that Amazon responded to the coronavirus and how they took measures that weren't just to preventing the spread of the virus within their company. Amazon is a very large company, and with companies like that, it's very common that with companies that are for profit, they put their goals of profit before their employees, and we tend to see employees' labor rights violated during this. Some things I found out during my research was that the CEO of Amazon during this pandemic has profited so much that he's actually the first man on track to becoming a trillionaire. I also have a job app where I look for jobs all the time on my cell phone, and almost every day I see about 15 new listings of Amazon warehouse jobs. So you can just note that Amazon's main goal during this pandemic was to produce and work their workers so they could gain as much profit as they could. Some things I think Amazon should have done differently was at the beginning of the pandemic installed a plan so they could gain confidence in their employers that they were working in safe and healthy conditions, and therefore their workers weren't having to fight with their union to fight for the safe and healthy working conditions. Another thing, once again, is that since profit was their top priority, I think they should have, in this case, made employee safety their top priority. And basically, I think that Amazon didn't respond the way they should have, and which caused the strikes and walkouts. I do think that Amazon employees did the right thing by striking and having a petition be signed to meet their labor rights. And it doesn't surprise me that a company like Amazon that's for profit, it's very profit-based, had an occurrence like this happen. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation.